This video is brought to you by my patrons, with an extra special thanks to A Socialist Hobgoblin, Chris Harper, Dan Brown, Juice4711, William Gray, Bags, Finn Flaherty, and Laura M. Ladies, gentlemen, and especially NBs, this video discusses mental health, gender identity, depression, medication use, neurodivergence, weight loss and weight gain, transphobia, genital mutilation, abusive relationships, and contains scenes of flashing lights. Thank you. I don't know what gender feels like. No, I don't like that. So far, off to a bad start. Okay.
Don't you know me, Kansas City? I'm the new Berlin Wall. Try to tear me down!
Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a 2001 film written and directed by and starring John Cameron Mitchell with music and lyrics by Stephen Trask, based on the 1998 stage show of the same name. It tells the story of Hedwig Robinson,
the internationally ignored song stylist barely standing before you,
a non-binary trans woman from East Berlin, and her rock band The Angry Inch, as they travel the United States, shadowing the tour of the rock star Tommy Gnosis.
To whom I taught everything he knows and has apparently forgotten about rock and roll.
As the film goes on, Hedwig recounts her tragic life and how that led her to where she is in the story, her past in communist East Berlin, her relationship that led to her traumatic transition, and her time with Tommy, all her pain and heartbreak that made her who she is as she tries to put together the pieces of her from her past to make herself into something whole. I saw this film for the first time this year, and the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time, and I'm sure I'll watch it many more times yet. I was aware of it before, and knew bits and pieces of what it was about. I'd listened to the 2015 Broadway cast with Neil Patrick Harris and Lena Hall and enjoyed it pretty well, but was missing the full context. Back at the start of the year I got the film on Blu-ray, and watching it once was enough to make me obsessed. I downloaded multiple different soundtrack albums, which I have basically never stopped listening to, watched the pro-shoot of the original show and bootlegs of the Broadway revival. It has basically consumed me for this whole year. Sometimes a piece of art will hit you in just the right way to split you wide open and make you reevaluate your feelings on everything. Hedwig did that for me. Why did this story, one about a broken, angry trans person who is trying to figure out how to put meaning into her life, hit me in this way? What was it about Hedwig? What was it about me? I have been dealing with depression for the majority of my adult life. I don't know what, if anything, brought it about. It's not a thing that can be easily pinned down. Life is complicated and messy, and there are so many factors that can contribute to low moods. The way that it affects me is that I spend most of my time feeling okay, carrying on as normal. Except every few weeks I get hit by what I call bad brain days. On these days, I'm lethargic, short-tempered, and my head feels heavy. It makes carrying out my usual daily tasks like my day job hard to manage because I'm just filled with this overwhelming sense of despair. Like, nothing I do has any point. I am just worthless. I am ugly. No one likes me. The people I think are my friends are just pretending to take pity on me. And the second that I stop talking to them, they're all talking about how annoying I am behind my back. I may never feel happy again. I don't know how. This year, after 10 years of living in this city, I finally signed up to a GP. It was one of those things that I always knew I should do, but never got around to. But I wanted updates on the vaccine, so I signed up. A little while after this, I had a bad brain day, and my friend told me I should speak to my GP now that I have one. That letting these bad days happen to me so often was not normal, was not smart, was doing me harm. Eventually, I took her up on this idea. I made an e-appointment, spoke to them, and got prescribed antidepressants. Specifically, 20 milligrams of citalopram, which I take daily. As I write this, I've been on these pills for around 4 months, and I feel better. I haven't had any bad brain days in that time. My overall mood has improved. I hadn't even realised before just how low my general mood was. I'd been operating with that as my norm for so long that I didn't even question if there was something wrong there. I had very limited side effects to taking them. They make me yawn a lot, though that has been dying down recently, and for a little while I had a slightly upset stomach, but that too has abated without worry. The side effects can vary wildly, and there is a list of potential ones that is fairly staggering, but for the positive effect that they've had on me, they have been more than worth what I dealt with. What surprised me the most about this is just how easily it happened. It took one phone call. One short phone call with a nurse practitioner, and 3 days later I had the meds. I had years of my mood being so low, and days where I felt so insecure and tired, like there was a physical weight pressing down on my forehead, and this whole time I could have just made one phone call and got better. Why did I wait so long? Why didn't I sign up to a GP sooner and just speak to someone? Around the same time I started treatment for my depression, I also began to suspect that I may have ADHD. I had seen friends who have it discussing their symptoms and realised that I fit into a lot of those boxes. I struggle to remember to do things if they don't seem important or engaging in the immediate. I can work tirelessly on a video essay and never lose focus, but the dirty dishes that have been sitting on my coffee table for days? I know that I should clean them. I don't want to leave them sitting there, but I just don't do them. Then I feel guilty for not doing them, and tell myself, okay, I have to do these right now. Then I still don't do them. On and on until it gets to a point where I absolutely cannot put it off any longer. Signing up for a GP never felt like a necessary thing to me. I wasn't sick, and I didn't have any ongoing medical issues, and I would have to break up my schedule to go get it done, and I just didn't. It just did not feel important enough. One of the rare positives to come out of the pandemic is getting me onto proper mental health treatment. After a while on the antidepressants, I asked my GP about ADHD. I took a survey, and the results came back as indicative of that. I haven't had an official diagnosis because the referral process takes 3 to 5 years, which is the least compatible thing with the way that my brain works. It's honestly ludicrous. So, indicative will have to do. The treatment I have received and gaining an understanding of my neurodivergence has produced a certain clarity in me that had been missing for a long time. It's hard to think too much about who you are and what makes you happier when you're dealing with a constant fog that blocks everything about you from sight. For me, antidepressants have been the light that has cut through that fog and let me finally start to see myself. What Hedwig wants more than anything is to find her other half. The song The Origin of Love draws on imagery from Plato's Symposium, that of the children of the sun, the moon, and the earth. Beings at the dawn of time who had 2 sets of arms, 2 sets of legs, and 2 faces. The children of the sun were 2 men, the children of the earth were 2 women, and the children of the moon were both man and woman together. One day the gods grew wary of them and so split them down the middle, separating them into individual people as we now know them. And when the 2 halves meet, their longing to go back to their joined state is what we call love. Hedwig deeply believes that she can find this missing piece of her, the one who will make her whole again. The first person she thinks might fit the bill is before her transition, while she lives in East Berlin as Hansel, Sergeant Luther Robinson, an American soldier stationed there. The 2 quickly fall for each other, and Luther concocts a plan to escape to America together. They'll get married, and she can leave with him. They alter her mother's passport, Hansel taking the name on it, Hedwig. But the catch is that a marriage will require a physical examination, so Hedwig will have to undergo an operation.
To walk away, you gotta leave something.
To be free, one must give up a little part of oneself. And I know just the doctor to take it.
Hedwig is medically transitioned against her own will. The surgery is botched, leaving her with only the titular angry inch. But for all the hardship, she gets to be with her new husband, in America, finally free. Then a year later, Luther leaves her for a young man, and Germany is reunified, the Berlin Wall falling. Alone, uncertain, and heartbroken, Hedwig embraces her new self, and finds pleasure in becoming more confident in her identity, taking a life that was forced onto her and making it her own. The next person she thinks may be her other half is Tommy Speck, a 17-year-old she meets while babysitting to make ends meet. She takes him under her wing and teaches him about rock and roll, the one thing that brought her solace when she was a child, listening to it in the oven. The two grow close as Hedwig shapes Tommy into the rock star he'll become, giving him the name Tommy Gnosis, from the Greek for knowledge. But when the two finally come together, and it looks like Hedwig has found everything she's been looking for.
What is that?
It's what I have to work with.
I love the front of me, honey!
Tommy leaves her over his transphobia and becomes famous from songs that she wrote. Hurt, Rejected, and Angry. Hedwig follows his tour with her own band, until an encounter with Tommy makes their connection public, and Hedwig, gaining notoriety, is forced to confront herself. She's given so much away to the people in her life, and it's finally time for her to figure out what is left. She sees a vision of Tommy, this rock star she created and a reflection of herself. Her other half was something she conjured and created on her own. She can become whole by herself. In the end, she didn't need the love that she spent so long searching for, and it took breaking through all this pain and letting go to find that. Lately, I've been struggling a little with how I view my body. Over the course of several years, I put on quite a lot of weight through a combination of a lack of activity and unhealthy eating. Growing up, I had always had a pretty fast metabolism that meant I could eat basically whatever I felt like and barely exercise, and I wouldn't really gain any weight. But as I got into my late 20s, it slowed down, and I put on a lot without really realising it. Because I have a tall and fairly slim frame, it was kind of hard to notice the weight gain as it was happening, but it was happening. Last year, I set out to lose weight and make myself happier with my body. I know that you can be happy with yourself and love the way you are at any weight, and I don't want to suggest anyone should have to lose weight if they don't want to. I never want to shame anyone over their body, that's just a shitty thing to do to people. But for me, at that time, it was what I felt like I needed to do to be happier and healthier. So, I cut down on my unhealthy eating. I didn't stop entirely because that's simply unrealistic and would undoubtedly lead to me giving up and binge eating down the line. I still wasn't eating healthily per se, but I was having fewer sweets and things. This was made easier when the lockdown was in full force, and going to the shops for just snacks felt like a pointless risk. As well as this, I started regularly exercising, using a home workout app with plans to help me get into better shape. I'm not especially good at exercise, and there have been times when I just cannot find the motivation or retain the discipline to do it as much as I should. But it has definitely had a positive effect on me. Turns out when people say that exercising releases endorphins and makes you feel good, they weren't just making it up. It's actually a thing. Through exercise and cutting down on the snacks and being as disciplined as I could with it, I managed to lose nearly 4 stone over the course of 8 months. Getting down to a healthy weight I was happy and comfortable with. I felt amazing and so proud of myself. Then I started to fall back into bad habits. I keep eating more than I want to, and I'm much less disciplined about exercising, and from the tail end of last year through the course of this year, I have managed to put back on almost half of the weight that I lost. I feel ashamed of myself for this, which I know is not a productive or healthy way to look at the situation. These things happen, and beating myself up about it will only cause me to spiral harder into the bad habits I want to break myself of. But it's one thing to know that rationally, and another thing to feel it emotionally. I think this is something I'm going to be struggling with for a long while. On a more positive note, this year I actually got my hair to be something that I like. For years, I went through the same boring pattern. I'd get my hair cut really short, then leave it for a few months to grow out, and then get it cut really short again. This was it for me basically from childhood until this year, when I finally stopped to think, what if my hair could look nice instead? So I started to let it grow out intentionally. Then when I got it cut, I decided to get the side short but leave the top long. Then I actually started styling it. Something I've always liked is when I'd see women with cool, shorter, androgynous haircuts, undercuts and taper cuts and stuff like that. I thought I'd always just liked the way that they looked, that it was cool and aesthetic, but I guess, secretly, I wanted to look like that myself. My hair looks nice now. It isn't quite the androgynous look I think I want, but I like it. Such a simple change can make a huge difference in how you feel. Instead of letting a part of my appearance be stuck in this one rigid way that left me trapped in a routine without thinking about it, I get to look in a mirror and like what I see. For so long, I didn't care about my body. I felt like I didn't need to have standards for it because really it wasn't worth anything. It was me, but me wasn't really a thing I cared to be. But since embracing myself as queer and becoming more comfortable within that identity, I have found reason to care, and I am taking action to make me more comfortable within myself. It's a process, and I doubt I'll ever finish, but I like caring. I like looking in a mirror and feeling happy to see my reflection. I like being me. Hedwig as a film is iconic among queer communities, but how does the character fit within that? I described Hedwig as a non-binary trans woman, and in a sense that is true. But she isn't trans in the way that actual trans people are. She was never uncomfortable being the gender she was assigned. She expressed no desire to change herself. The surgery was done to her, presented as her only way to escape with her love. She didn't ask to become a woman. This creates a powerful and painful trauma in the character that drives so much of her anger and makes her so deeply relatable. But it's a difficult and unpleasant element of the film that needs to be engaged with. It presents what is a life-saving surgery to so many people as a mutilation. This is incredibly harmful. It's inaccurate and appropriative, with the chief creative voices behind the story being two cis men. It should not be seen as fully accurate, and I do not blame anyone who wants to dismiss the film on those grounds. It borders closely to a dangerous narrative that transphobes push. That people, especially children, are being forced into medical procedures and irreversible decisions against their will. But this is fiction. In the real world, getting access to any gender-affirming medical care as a trans person has such a long, arduous, red tape-heavy process with years-long waiting lists and intense mental health screenings. For treatment that cisgender people can access immediately, the people do not commit to this process of medical segregation unless they know and are certain that this is what they need to be more comfortable in their own bodies. Children cannot access these treatments at all, only rigorously tested and completely reversible puberty blockers. With womanhood forced upon her, Hedwig is abandoned by Luther, leaving her alone, depressed and confused, only further confounded by seeing that her mother has also escaped without her, and the very society they were escaping from has collapsed with the Berlin Wall. She has nothing, in an unfamiliar country with no one she knows to help her. This leads into my favourite song of the film, Wig in a Box. Faced with all this uncertainty, this heartbreak, this desperate situation, Hedwig decides to embrace her feminine identity. She finds that being this glamorized version of herself, being Hedwig, makes her happy, at least in the short term. In this moment, Hedwig becomes something more than she was before. There is a drag element to her presentation, moving away from the simple, plain look that she had in time with Luther and becoming more lavish and exaggerated. It's clear that she gains tremendous confidence and joy from this performance of her gender, one that is undoubtedly feminine, but draws some attention to the masculinity beneath. Hedwig is no longer the man she was, or the woman that Luther made her. She is something else. In the opening song of the film, Tear Me Down, Hedwig compares herself to the Berlin Wall. Like the wall, there is a rigid divide that splits apart man and woman. Hedwig is taken from one side of this divide to the other, but then the wall falls.
And now that it's gone, we don't know who we are anymore.
Hedwig's idea of this binary that she must fit on one side of collapses as she finds this middle ground between man and woman, which gives her power and confidence, but also leaves her vulnerable and open to hurt from people like Tommy, who can't embrace something that exists outside of what he knows. After going through all the movie in this mode of presentation, she strips it all away in her most raw and revealing moment during the song Exquisite Corpse. This leaves her all but naked during the emotional climax of the film. Torn from her feminine, drag shield, she has no choice but to confront who she is. Underneath all of the makeup, outfits and wigs, who is the person that lies beneath? The answer to it lies within Tear Me Down.
Ain't much of a difference between a bridge and a wall without me right in the middle there. Wow, we're nothing at all.
Instead of seeing her genderqueer identity as the wall that divides people, she can see it as a bridge that connects all the misfits and opens the way for others to express themselves. No matter how she appears, she is still in the middle. She is just as much Hedwig when she looks like this as when she looks like this. She has power in this to lift people up and give them confidence in themselves. As John Cameron Mitchell has said of her, she's more than a woman or a man. She's a gender of one, and that is accidentally so beautiful. One of my favourite things in the world is Frankenstein. I love the book, I love the movies, especially the ones with Boris Karloff, my beloved. I love anything to do with Frankenstein. Strange as it might seem, it really does tie into my queerness. The creature is this misunderstood figure who gets reviled and othered for being different. He just wants to be loved and happy. He would be content never to harm anyone, but everyone attacks him just for existing until he snaps. The reflection it has to queer experience is deep and moving. This is only mirrored by the tragic life that Mary Shelley, a queer woman herself, lived, full of death, abandonment and heartbreak. She was a child, only 19 years old, when she began to write the story. She had already experienced more loss than many of us will ever feel in our whole lives. She took her trauma and pain and pieced it together into a chilling tale of what happens when you cruelly turn away from the ones who need love the most. She is both creator and creation. The art is her as much as she is the art. I collect Frankenstein stuff. Copies of the book, action figures, soft toys, whatever I can get my hands on. If it's Frankenstein, then I want it. Having these things, putting them on display in the way that I do, is me saying out loud that I have felt the way that the creature does. I have felt like I don't belong because of the way that society has formed itself to exclude people who aren't like them, who put up walls and hurt and mock anyone who stands outside their norm. It is a declaration of defiance against it. I will not seek to be one of you. I will not try to blend in. I will be the monster that you have made me until you learn the truth. Being Frankenstein feels like an apt metaphor for so much of living through the times that we do. When queerphobic attacks are on the rise, the politicians in power are trying to legislate my friends out of existence. When we've been cut off from community, it's hard to feel like there's hope in these times. But there's a quote from Frankenstein that has always resonated with me. Life, although it may only be an accumulation of anguish, is dear to me, and I will defend it. The creature says this as part of a threat against his absent creator. The initial intent is to show that the creature will not let himself be destroyed and will use violent force to live. But I have internalized this as a hopeful expression. To say that even when life is at its worst, when I feel the brunt of my depression, when I'm alone or hurt or scared, when I feel like the world has been stacked against me by forces outside of my control, I know that my life matters. I matter. My life is dear to me, and I will defend it. For all that I feel Hedwig's pain so much, see parts of myself in her that I didn't always know were there, and want to be her just a little. I can't ignore who she is, who she shows herself to be. Hedwig is kind of a terrible person. She hurts so many people in her life. She allows her obsessions to drive her and takes all her anger out on everyone around her. The film is built around someone who acts incredibly toxic throughout almost the entire runtime, and it can be hard to reconcile that as the same person who has made me feel so much sympathy towards her. When she meets Luther, something awakens in Hedwig. As she stands there naked before him, eating his gummy bears, she realises that in this situation, she has power over this guy because of how much he wants her. Tasting of power, she is initially terrified at it, remembering a warning from her mother.
Absolute Macht verdirbt den Charakter.
Absolut.
Machtlos zu sein ist besser, mein Junge.
Soon she goes back to it though, enticed by it. She expresses through the song Sugar Daddy just how much the thrill of being in control of someone moves her. This is a thing that she is living for. She wants to be the person with power as often as she can, which she gets by putting herself into positions of power over others. Tommy is only 17 years old when she meets him, with her literal first interaction with him being a sexual assault. She preys on this young, insecure, emotionally fragile teenager and forces him to adopt her tastes and dress and change his appearance to a way that she wants. She grooms him into being her idea of a rock star, because it puts her in a position over him as a teacher and a mentor. Then, when he breaks away from her, she once again feels powerless. Her two lowest moments in the film come from this lack of power she feels when her partners leave her. But unlike when Luther leaves, this time Hedwig doesn't have a new identity to embrace that can make her feel strong and revitalized. She only has her broken life and the one group that she still gets to have power over. The Angry Inch. Hedwig's band is made up entirely of Eastern Europeans. There's Schlatko, Christoph, Jacek, Skisp, and Yitzhak. The suggestion is that they're in the country illegally. Hedwig holds onto their passports and lords it over them during their performances.
Look out, guys, immigration! I've got their passports right here.
She is in control of their lives. They travel with her, sharing increasingly tiny hotel rooms, and can't leave because she is keeping their legal documents hostage. She consistently treats them like they don't matter, and is seen to be verbally abusive to them.
How many times do I have to tell you? You don't put a bra in a dryer! It warps!
No one receives this abuse worse than Yitzhak, Hedwig's husband and man Friday through Thursday. Yitzhak's backstory is made more explicit in the stage show than in the film, as a flashback sequence was cut. He was a drag queen, performing in Croatia under the name Kriston Nakt, and met Hedwig as she left a performance early because Yitzhak's applause drowned out her introduction. Yitzhak begged Hedwig to marry him so that he could leave Croatia and get to America. Hedwig agreed, but under a condition.
Honey, to walk away, you've got to leave something behind. I'll marry you on the condition that a wig never touch your head again.
To hold power over Yitzhak, she forcibly takes away the one thing that he loves. He longs to do drag, trying on Hedwig's wigs when she isn't around, and he simply can't bear the strain anymore and tries to leave, getting the role of Angel in a Polynesian Cruises production of Rent and demanding a divorce, in response to which Hedwig tears up his passport, so he has nowhere to go. She is abusive to all the people in her life because of the thrill of power it gives her. At the end of the film, during the song Midnight Radio, Hedwig, having found this true version of herself, gives Yitzhak a wig and finally grants him the freedom he longs for. It doesn't make up for all the abuse that she put him through, but it is the beginning of making amends, an acceptance of the things that she has done wrong. Hedwig is a broken, hurting person who takes her pain out on others because it makes her feel powerful. There are people who reject the movie as glorifying her abuse, but it doesn't shy away from the pain she causes, even as we sympathise with her. I would rather a queer character have these messy, difficult layers to read into, instead of being some pristine, angelic figure. Last year, I made a video where I talked about masculinity and gender performativity. The idea that through our performance of gender, we perpetuate the very concepts that make it exist in the world. I was using it to process my relationship to my own gender, and the ways that I have felt discomfort with being a man, when the ideas that we push as being the most masculine are so often extremely toxic and harmful. At the end of that video, I said that I wanted to find my own particular balance of the masculine and feminine to figure out the kind of man that I wanted to be. I still stand by the things I said in that video. The ways that we talk about and experience masculinity are flawed, and I think that we need to find healthier ways to let men engage with the world and their emotions. But for me, connecting more to my femininity has meant that I don't entirely think I am a man anymore. But I'm not a woman either. I don't especially want to be a woman. I want to be in between. I am in between. I can't shed myself of my masculinity. It's an ingrained part of me that has always been here and will always be here, and I like it. I like my beard and my body shape and my voice. I like the way I look in a lot of masculine-coded clothing. But then I spend time around other men, and I don't feel like I belong with them. I don't feel like I fit completely. There are traits that we associate with femininity that I admire so deeply. The emotional openness with others, being unafraid to feel everything, the strength in the face of violent oppression. I look at women and I see beauty and power, and I want to be like that. I want to be as strong and graceful as that. But I know that I'm not a woman, and I don't imagine myself to be one. It is complicated and hard to explain because I don't fully understand it myself. Over the last couple of years, I have become good friends with a lot more queer people, and specifically quite a few trans people, both binary and non-binary. They are all some of the most incredible people I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. Each and every one of them is stunning and funny and so kind. My life is immeasurably better for having them in it. I am truly lucky to have the friends that I do. Befriending a lot of trans people at a time when I was thinking about gender and what it means to me, even if it was for academic reasons, gave me space to think and words to put to my experiences that wouldn't have been there if I hadn't known them. I honestly don't know if I could have come to the conclusions about myself that I have without just having their presence around me. They gave me the courage to question that part of myself, to really dig deep and let myself think, yes, I can be more than I am. I can do this. Having a community gave me that strength. My asexuality and aromanticism have both played into my perception of my gender. So much of being a man, of being masculine, is tied into difficult ideas of being sexual. There's a pressure that men put on themselves to have and talk about sex, often in vulgar and demeaning ways, that puts the shame and insecurity on the people who don't. So, having as little connection to sex as I do, to attraction to people at all even, it heightens the feeling that I don't belong to the gender I had always assumed I did. If I don't feel attraction to the people around me, of any gender, then why should my gender have to be fixed down to the one I thought it was? I'm not performing my gender for anyone but me, so why shouldn't it be however I want it to? Why shouldn't I embrace the in-between? Since realizing this about myself, after thinking about myself in those terms, I have been happier than I knew I could be. So much of what we see in people's stories of transition is misery and dysphoria. People discarding a life that doesn't fit them because it's driven them down a spiral they think they can't escape, where even being in their own body makes them feel terrible and disgusted. But so much of becoming who you were truly meant to be depends on joy. I wasn't miserable as a guy. I could have stayed that way for the rest of my life and never really questioned it. But when I started to see myself as something other than that, it gave me a thrill. When I told people close to me that I was feeling that way, it was like opening a window and letting fresh air into me. When I tried on a dress for the first time, not as a joke, not to play a character, but to be me in my dress, I don't remember a time I've ever felt such joy. Such plain, ecstatic, cannot stop smiling joy. It is hard not to doubt myself, to question if I really feel this way or if I'm just trying to be different and interesting. If it's a phase that I'll get tired of and wish I'd never said to anyone. Who am I to try and stake claim to this? I haven't suffered the way that real trans people suffer. I don't get to just be that, do I? But when I get like that, so uncertain, worried, nervous and self-loathing, all I have to do is look at pictures of myself in my dress, look at how happy it makes me, and feel that joy welling up inside me all over again. And I know that I can do this. I can be this. I can say that I am non-binary. Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a story about divisions and what can unify them. It's a story of a person who has suffered cruelty and taken all her hurt and put it onto those around her for a taste of power over them. It's a story of a lost soul looking for something to make her life whole, only to realise that she can't rely on others to do that for her. It's a story of discovering your gender identity and accepting your place in the world. It is all those stories and more, all at once, each one a piece of the whole. Hedwig is a collage, sewn up from all the pieces of her life. Each piece on its own means something that can't be truly seen until they all come together. The film ends on the rousing song Midnight Radio, a rallying cry to all the misfits, losers and rock and rollers, telling you that even when your dreams seem fleeting, you shine. You are everything that you need to be. You are beautiful. You are whole. Like Hedwig, like all of us, I am the sum of my parts. I said at the start of this that I don't know what gender feels like. That's true. I can't put a tangible description on what feeling it was about me that made me decide that, yes, I am non-binary and I will be happier if I embrace that. Because it's never just one thing. I am my depression, my neurodivergence, my struggles with weight, my passion for Frankenstein. I am my pain, my joy, and everything in between. I am all these things and so much more, and all of them make me, me. I have fear and I have doubts, and I don't think they'll ever fully go away. Coming out as a trans person, even one who still intends to mostly present as the gender they were assigned at birth, is a scary thing to do right now. I live in the UK, where transphobic hatred is so commonplace and impossible to escape. In doing this, I potentially open myself up to this hate, and that scares me. I wonder, is it worth it? Do I really want this? And then I think of the joy. On nights like this, when the world's a bit amiss, and the lights go down across the trailer park, I get down, I feel had, I feel on the verge of going mad. Then it's time to punch the clock. I put on some makeup and turn on the tape deck and put the wig back on my head. Suddenly I miss Midwest Midnight Checkout Queen until I head home and I put myself to bed. I look back on where I'm from, look at the woman I've become, and the strangest things seem suddenly routine. I look up from my vermouth on the rocks, a gift-wrapped wig still in the box of towering velveteen. I put on some makeup, some leather baker, and pull the wig down from the chair. Suddenly I miss Beehive 1963 until I wake up and I turn back to myself. Some girls, they got natural ease, they wear it any way they please, with the French flip curls and perfume magazines. Wear it up and down, this is the best way that I've found to be the best you've ever seen. I put on some makeup, turn on the 8-track, I'm pulling the wig down from the shelf. Suddenly I miss Farrah Fawcett from TV until I wake up and I turn back to myself. Shag by Level Bob, Dorothy Hamilton, sausage curls, chicken wings, it's all because of you. With your blow dry feather back, Tony Hawk too. Flip, fro, frizz, flop, it's all because of you. 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 Okay, everybody now. I put on some makeup, turn on the 8-track. From the shelf. screen, and I ain't never, I'm never sent back.